Jai and Dhanyavad, all glories to the Vaishnavas and our gurus. I'm very happy today to be part of the Sangha again and to welcome everyone who is joining. Srila Madhusudan Maharaj, we are missing too much, but we have a wonderful topic to start with, and that is serving in separation. I especially like this topic because everyone experiences this from time to time. And we are in the line of the highest servitors who express even a moment of separation from Krishna as being unbearable. And so we are in a very different mood and we may have very different reasons, but to be in separation is great suffering. So I hope that everyone would like to ask some questions and make some comments on this topic because it's very important for us all. Now, one of the first things that it makes me think of is serving in separation. First, we need to think about what is actually service. And is it the activities themselves or those activities, if they produce a pleasing result that the gurus and the Vaishnavas appreciate, or only if they were explicitly requested to us. But we find that it's actually the mood which we are trying and praying to maintain. And one of those first places that I find this explained is in the preface to Sri Guru and His Grace by Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, when he is expounding on Bhagavad Gita 434, which is just approach the wise and bona fide spiritual master. Surrender unto him first and try to understand him by inquiries and service. Such a wise spiritual master will enlighten you with transcendental knowledge, for he has already known the absolute truth. And Srila Prabhupada explains very well, to receive transcendental knowledge, we must completely surrender ourselves to the real Acharya in a spirit of ardent inquiry and service. Actual performance of service to the Absolute under the guidance of the Acharya is the only vehicle by which we can assimilate transcendental knowledge. So this gets us beginning to understand what service actually is. And then later I found in the Centenary Anthology in chapter 12, Srila Guru Maharaj says, self-giving is a symptom of Shraddha, faith. Without self-giving, intellectualism will have no value. Reading scriptures will have no value. And also the physical association of the sadhu will have no value if there is no Shraddha. Many living entities, including bugs and mosquitoes, have physical association with the sadhus, but association through dedication is necessary. Shraddha is all important. To have Shraddha means to have the mood that if we dedicate everything to Krishna, we will get everything. We'll achieve whatever is necessary, wholesale fulfillment. The path of that is dedication, Shraddha, and Seva. That is dedication, faith, and service. And therefore our Guru Maharaj, and here of course Srila Guru Maharaj is speaking of Srila Saraswati Thakur, laid much emphasis on service. We were not allowed so much to read even Srimad Bhagavatam or the books by the six Goswamis, but our time was to be utilized in service. This strikes me as such an important point to hear from Srila Guru Maharaj because he is of the highest stature. And he is quoting Srila Saraswati Thakur. So these words we can completely trust. Then he says, the serving nature will connect you with the real thing. Neither scriptural knowledge nor the close association with the saint has any meaning if it is not done with dedication, self-surrender, self-giving. Physical association alone has no meaning. It must all be done through shraddha and service, so much so that if a sadhu or guru asks, read this book, then it will be service. But if I read a book to enhance my knowledge, it may be gyan, but not service. We can only have real progress through sevan mukhe hi jivado. Otherwise, everything may be imitation. If we do not approach with the spirit of service, everything may be imitation, and we won't come in contact with reality. This is the most important point, and it is the specialty of the Gaudiya Math, our acharyas, our gurudevs, and also of Mahaprabhu and Rupa Goswami. So these points are the highest about, to answer the question which I always have, how do I know what I am doing is service or not? How do I know if it is pleasing? And so to maintain my faith and my attitude, it is the mood in which I'm doing anything. And that includes, of course, walking down the street. We might be thinking that we're walking down the street to get to the airport, to get on the plane, to go be with our guru. But still, that mood that we have, that faith and that dedication, that's what makes our activities service. So I'd like to hear what others are thinking about this. I see many others have joined in the last couple of minutes.
Dandavat Kumkum Didi. It's
Dandavad.
Priyanana. I will not turn.
Priyanana.
Yes, I will not turn on the video because it's a bit late, so I'm not in a proper dress. Sorry. I just want to add. I mean, on our level, maybe it's good to offer something before you do to your guru. I mean, it doesn't mean automatically that it's going to turn into service, but at least you tried. Like this maybe. Yeah. And I mean, you say
Yes.
it's important to keep the mood, but as for me, I cannot really, like feel whether the service was accepted or not. So at least some, I mean, I don't call it formality, but some rules help maybe to remember for whom it's done.
Yes.
And so on. Just like this maybe.
Yes. Yes. It's actually very encouraging. Everything that we hear about service to our gurus means we're hearing about how exalted they are and who they are representing, who they are connecting us with. Sriman Mahaprabhu, who is Sri Krishna and Radha together. So we're constantly being reminded that what we are pursuing is connection. There is no higher pursuit, no higher purpose for our human life. That answers so many questions that many people can't even begin to ask. And we not only feel inspired by their association to ask them, but they're constantly giving us these answers. So it's no surprise if we feel it's a type of pressure to try to perfect ourselves more and more. And yet, perfection comes down to the simplest of answers. Having faith and being dedicated, even reading high scriptures which are given to us, if it's not in a mood of service, then we can examine whether we are reading these important books which are given to us with such care for the purpose of gyan, or illuminating ourselves as a great scholar or wise in Vedic knowledge. That is one thing and can be converted to service, but it's important to know. Sometimes our life will take us to a place where we can't chant out loud. We can't have a conversation with any Vaishnav, not out loud. But we can think about all of the things that we can do just in that mood of service. I remember a few weeks ago, BBC, question was asked of Srila Madhusudan Maharaj about the mother overcoming attachment, or anyone overcoming familial attachment, but particularly a mother. And I can remember hearing this point debated from the very beginning of my practicing life, more than 50 years ago, and it's not well understood by many, so I very much appreciated the illumination that Madhusudan Maharaj gives. And he was explaining that it's not for us to be detached. It's being Krishna conscious about all of our relationships, especially those with people we have no control over, no matter what we think. We don't have control over anyone but ourselves. Hopefully we have some control over ourselves. And so having a Krishna conscious relationship means to see them as part of Krishna. And that helps me to think also of what about that person we may be driving and they are rude in the way they drive. How can we think of them in relation to Krishna? It's not so difficult by the grace of our gurus. We can think about them having a totally different karma. We can think about them helping us to work off our old karma by enlightening us to the fact that we have some fear in traffic because of other drivers. So we can always be thinking of Krishna. That's always service. If we have that dedication to always be his servant, then there's always, no matter what circumstance we're in, a way to be rendering service to our guru. And just cycling through the beautiful little pictures here. If anybody else wants to speak up, please don't hesitate.
Maybe can I just
Another,
ask you? Oh, sorry.
no, please go ahead.
I just wanted to ask you, like, this personal question. When did you understand, like, that this is the highest purpose, the highest goal, and it's like it worth it? I mean, whether it was like at once with like meeting Srila Prabhupada's movement, or like later someone, but like the real understanding, like, yes, this is it. I mean, there is lots of other things, but that's like the topmost.
What a happy question. Because the very first time was when I first read his words, when I was thinking of something, I suppose it was somewhat spiritual. I was 20 years old, had dropped out of college because I couldn't figure out what I wanted to major in, and was very distressed about the state of my country, the United States, at that time, 1971, where it looked like we could have a civil war. And there were some very important points that were dividing everyone, and it seemed like there was no answer. So my question to the universe was, how do I know what I want to do with the rest of my life. And here I am in a place to get a college degree and proceed in that route and getting a good job, but no feeling of satisfaction or fulfillment. And just as I was thinking that by some what appears to be mystical fashion, which we now know is the grace, the unconditional grace of the Lord, the words of Srila Prabhupada just came to me by a stranger walking in with a Back to Godhead magazine. And in that magazine was a poem which Srila Prabhupada wrote just before he disembarked the boat, the Jaladuta. And the way he was speaking about, I do not know how I can be a success in this endeavor. This country appears to be covered by the modes of passion and ignorance. I don't know if they'll be able to accept the transcendental message of Vasudeva. But I am your puppet. You can make me dance as you like. You can make me a success or a failure as you like. And even though I barely heard of the country of India, I certainly had no idea what Vasudeva meant. I thought transcendental had to do with American authors of the previous century, like Thoreau and Emerson. But somehow or other, the realization that it was correct hit me so deeply, and I didn't need to understand with my mind. So something in my heart just told me. And so I now understand that to be understood who Srila Prabhupada was nearly so well as when I finally came to hear how Srila Guru Maharaj and Srila Govinda Maharaj described him in the Pranam mantra that Gurudev wrote, where he says he is a Shaktivesh avatar of Lord Nityananda. And that explains everything better than any other way I know of to say it is simply his grace. It's the grace of Krishna, we get Guru. By the grace of Guru, we get Krishna. So to say, when did I fully understand it is a very fun question, because the answer is it's never any one place. It's a gradual awakening. And sometimes we start to go back to sleep. We start to doze a little bit, and then something jolts us awake again. So it's like that continually, and it never stops. Our dependence on our guru never diminishes, and our happiness at the understanding of that is always increasing.
Very hopeful.
Yes, I would conclusively say that. The external circumstances which bothered me at the time keep cycling around. Sometimes things look better in this world, sometimes they look worse, sometimes really terrible. But to have this overview, there is a transcendental explanation of what's going on. And we have access to those who see it thoroughly. And they give us the way to practice on a daily basis, morning and evening, and hopefully all filled in throughout the day, so that we always keep it with us. And then we'll be like the boat on the calm waters, not the one that's being tossed and turned nonstop, dependent on the external circumstances. Well, I was also thinking about the very important point when the guru departs and we want to continue to serve. So just to rein in even more the truth that service is not merely physical. When we first had to really face that was in 1977 when Srila Prabhupada departed. Our understanding of who is guru was very elementary. And so we went through, unfortunately, a few years of wondering what on earth do we do about the fact that we can't simply ask him a question. We can't go to see him. And we're hearing so many things about who is now guru. There wasn't a consensus. There wasn't a very broad understanding. There was a lot of speculation and argument. And then, by his grace, we were connected with Srila Guru Maharaj. And that was also by the grace of Srila Govinda Maharaj, both of whom we pretty soon came to understand were precisely saying the same thing as Srila Prabhupada. And in that sense, it was like finding out he had not left at all. So that's what, if our guru has departed, what we're requiring is someone who is simply giving our guru, not changing it in any way, not making us think of them as like a pleasant personality or a charismatic person at all, but simply making us feel closer to our guru. And that person is exactly like the lens of the telescope, which is simply clarifying the next lens and the next lens so that we see that celestial object even better because of their explanation. And when we require somebody that we can walk up to and ask questions of and hopefully receive some service instruction from, then it makes us very happy. This point is perfectly discussed in the entire chapter 2 of Shri Guru and His Grace. And here's just one excerpt from that. Srila Sridhar Maharaj says there, and he's speaking to disciples of Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj after he departed. So Srila Guru Maharaj told them, the disappearance of the spiritual master is mentioned in the Shastra with an example. The disciple is like a lotus. The spiritual master is like the water around the lotus, just as in a pond or a lake. Your late Gurudev's position is like water, and Krishna is like the sun. As long as the lotus is floating on the water, the sun will nourish the lotus. But if the water vanishes, that very sun will burn the lotus. Without water, the Krishna sun will burn the lotus, which means without the help of the guru, the disciple is nowhere. So this reminds us very much how we must be able to find our guru somewhere, and not in any imaginary way, but we must have a way to constantly confirm that the inner voice that we hear, that our mind is being told by our intelligence, whether our memories are true connections or whether we're kind of going off the path. This is extremely necessary. In fact, in the song by Srila Narottam Das Thakur, Viraha Giti, the fifth verse, Narottam Das says, they have all gone off together in their own pastimes. Unable to obtain their association, I must simply weep. So, after being so extremely hopeful and happy with their understanding of what is service, even in separation, there are very serious contemplations that will always force us to go deeper. It's not just a simple answer. As I mentioned earlier, this is the highest pursuit that we could be endeavoring for. So, with the idea of, if I can't be directly talking to my guru, let me get myself to an ashram. It's a very good idea. And so we have these festivals in various places in the world. We really want to go to those if we can, but to have this modern technology is amazing proof of the mercy of the Lord, where we can connect not just with a letter that we must write and await an answer, which is in the present. It's not that that was my question a few weeks ago and now I have the answer. When we have an unanswered question, we always need that in the present. And when we receive that answer, it's always the most relevant and pertinent thing in our life. But the modern technology is so amazing that we can be together live, even if the internet is sometimes unstable. But this question, if we can't be in an ashram, reminds me of actually Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Gurudev covers this in chapter 8 of Affectionate Guidance. And a devotee asks, a brahmachari who lives in the mat of the mission is in a very safe position because everything he is doing is seva for the mission. But in the grihastha ashram, we are doing so much karma. So how can we be safe in our spiritual life? And this is actually a very common question, whether it gets asked out loud or not. It's actually on the mind of many, many people. So we love this answer from Srila Govinda Maharaj. It is not always true. The brahmachari may be living in the mat. That may be true externally, but that brahmachari may really be living narak, hell. Similarly, one may be living in the grihastha ashram, but he can be residing in heaven. It is only dependent on the inner mood. Taking the saffron cloth, doing some work in the mat, and maintaining the formality is not sufficient. The only thing sufficient will be the true mood of devotion. If there is the mood of devotion, then that is very nice. That is quality. Srila Guru Maharaj said, we need quality and not quantity. You will see very few brahmacharis in Guru Maharaj's mat. They are coming and staying a few years maybe, but eventually they cannot remain. It is ultimately all depending on the mood of devotion or mood of emotion. If one is living in the mat only emotionally, never going to the deeper level, but only floating on the surface, then he will not get the proper result. And one grihastha can do 100 times more service to Krishna through his genuine mood of devotion. But if one is living in the mat and doing 24 hours per day sincere service, then one must get the proper result. The substance is necessary, and that is devotion. So I like this very much as a continuation of what we were hearing earlier about service being the mood. So of course that means from anywhere, doing any kind of activity. Priyananda, I'm very glad we can now see your smile. And once again, I will ask Someone has some comments. Please let us know what you're thinking. Asila Vanimai in Latvia. So happy to see your picture. I know many people are thinking on this topic. I very much would like to hear what it means to you and how do you cope. And Hari Gopal Prabhu, yes. I have thought of some other points that to me tie together. And, you know, one is about Vipralamba, and which is union and separation. Now, if you do a Google search for the meaning of union or Vipralamba, unfortunately, you may come up with many, many mundane answers, which are so distracting. So we don't need to trust the vague internet when we have so much given by Srila Prabhupada, Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Govinda Maharaj, and explained by their devoted servitors, modern acharyas, who we can reach out to. But if I think about precisely what is it that union and separation means, that at first can be like a difficulty that's a little bit too hard to swallow. However, the more we hear from our gurus about, and I believe everyone knows this is the name. I'm going to wait just a second until my internet, okay. We know that union and separation is the description on Srila Guru Samadhi Mandir. So why is it that even socially considered his own counterparts explained that we don't have to have separation, that we can experience union immediately? And he completely destroyed that erroneous sahajic point because it's not coming from Mahaprabhu. It's not the practice of Mahaprabhu. It's not anywhere in his preachings, but or any of the followers. We are in the Rupanuga Sampradaya. So how is it that separation could be higher than union? And again, Shri Guru in His Grace in chapter 2, Srila Guru Maharaj goes into this. He illustrates the answers to this very, very nicely. He says, my Gurudev, and of course he's speaking of Srila Saraswati Thakur, who has the most intense affection for me, is not here? How can it be? Everything is void. All has vanished with his departure. Such a deep sense of separation will come in the heart of a sincere disciple. Once, one of Prabhupada's devotees said in his lecture that separation is the highest realization. Here he's speaking of a devotee of ISKCON, Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada. And he said, and Guru Maharaj heard him say, separation is the highest realization. And Guru Maharaj goes on, I was very happy to hear from his lips that separation, vipralamba, is the highest attainment. Without separation, nothing else can come to us. The anticipation of meeting Krishna will appear to us as vipralamba. So vipralamba is the most auspicious thing pertaining to Krishna consciousness. And when we can have Krishna's connection also in that separation, the safest and most fearless position is vipralamba. If we can stand firm and retain the memory of Gurudev in his separation, then we will have passed the highest test. When we say that separation is the highest realization, he's saying that as opposed to thinking that physical connection is the highest. So it's not that we're aspiring ever, no matter what our circumstance is, and whether or not our guru is physically present, that we think that that physical connection is more important than the separation. And like they always say, the mosquitoes, the bugs, they have physical connection. That doesn't mean that they have any valid connection at all with that great soul. So this realization, separation is the Srila Guru Maharaj says, if we can stand firm and retain the memory of Gurudev in his separation, then we will have passed the highest test. So that proves that if we are retaining that memory, even when we're not with him, then that proves we're not misunderstanding this point about union not being as valuable as separation. Separation is causing us to go deep. It's causing us to become more dedicated to our practices, regardless of whether we imagine that we're feeling some ecstasy or some perfection of our sadhana or anything like that. We're coming to understand these things not only have no value, they have negative value. They can take us down from this truth that our guru is, our connection with our guru is not based on the kind of physical connection that the insects have. We can read in all of the scriptures and many of our kirtans given to us by our acharyas, particularly Thakur Bhaktivinoda, yet I find it most valuable to hear simply from Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev, and Srila Guru Maharaj. In fact, there's a prayer that Srila Guru Maharaj wrote, which is his prayer to Srila Saraswati Thakur, who had ended his manifest pastimes. This kirtan is called Sri Sri Dayita Dashakam. The 10th verse expresses beautifully the agony of having lost the physical association of the guru, but also the mood in which we will maintain the memory of that, how alive that connection will always be. In the 10th verse, Srila Guru Maharaj says, the entire earth and skies were filled with the cries of anguish of the people and of the disciples devoted to the service of Sri Gurudev's lotus feet. Where has that great master gone? Alas, the whole universe seems empty in the separation of Prabhupada. The servitor of Gurudev cannot endure even a moment of his separation. O Dina Nayana, wherever that great soul may be, please quickly take the servitor there to him. So the person who is able to explain to us so perfectly about the difference in connection in union and connection in separation is also, it's not a lightweight thing, it's not a flippant thing to say that we understand. We might sort of think that we do, because we have the experience of having lost someone who was close to us, and we know that our memories can really help us. We have pictures, we may have videos, so many ways we may again feel close enough to them, especially discussing with others who knew them well, that our sorrow is somewhat assuaged or limited. However, it is not lightweight. It is necessary for us to contemplate how such a great soul as our grandfather Guru, Srila Guru Maharaj, felt at the departure of his Guru. It's not a simple matter. And at the same time, what is the last line of his prayer? That we simply want to be there again with him. Living life in that way, we are with him until the bodily situation changes. And we know that. We know that Srila Govinda Maharaj commented that his grief at losing Srila Guru Maharaj was easier by contemplating that their lordships were missing him too much and had to have him back. So knowing this, it couldn't be more rare. There's no one who will speak of the departure of a loved one in such a spiritual manner. It boggles the mind. But these are our answers. So, of course, I'm hoping that everybody is able to apply this conception of what is service and separation. Always.
Dhanavad, Kumkum Didi.
Dhanavad, Gangalila.
So I was just thinking what I heard when I just now get up and tend to my plant, which I just in this moment notice that it has like brown and old stuff hanging off it. So I just basically serve the plant, like I'll just take that off. And then I start noticing it elsewhere, and I'm like, okay, so they're giving me service. So if I have that mood, actually, that is a qualified seva then? Is that what I heard? That it really isn't, it's like you said something about just kind of walking down the street. It's all a matter of my mood. So if I'm having whatever it is I'm doing, like picking the brown leaves off the plants, is in that service mood. Because sometimes I think I need to hear this often, basically. Of course, I heard it before, but I can't get enough of hearing that because part of me wonders if it's so simple.
Very good question. And when you're doing that activity, who are you thinking of? You're doing it for? Is it Krishna's plant?
Yeah, Krishna's plant.
And it is a very small, but it's something that makes everything for him nicer. Yes? And it's on you. There's not somebody else who may come along and do it.
Right. It's on me as nobody else. They are like at my mercy, and I'm basically just a, what's that called? That good word? Steward. Stewardess.
Yeah. Yes, it is service because that mood is perfect. And I don't know that I've ever heard that exact example of an activity before, but it is true. And it is that simple. There's so many varieties of activities that we must do. And earlier we were hearing from the devotee who said a brahmachari in the ashram, he's always engaged in service. And the grihasta has so many things to do, and even said we might be creating karma or doing bad karma, and so we might think that we're doing some karma or some bad karma. But Srila Gurudev is explaining to us that it can all be service. I can remember one picture and I bet you remember this better than me, in Bhagavad Gita, there's a beautiful painting of explaining in the 6th chapter, I believe, of the man, he's at work. He has on a business suit. He's at a desk, and he has a picture of Krishna on his desk. And this is the example of, I have this activity that I have to, and any of us who have ever had any kind of job know that can overwhelm you, that can absorb your mind, and you must engage your intelligence in that, or you will not have that job much longer. So if that is what is currently before you, you just remember Krishna while you're doing it. And the results are for him. We don't know if there is how much karma is involved, or is Krishna putting us in a situation that looks like karma because he's helping us to grow toward service in some way. There are too many things for us to try to understand that we can't really analyze, nor are we interested in analyzing in the sense of calculating. How much was it service and how much was it karma? Our gurus are not asking us to weigh in like that. I'm a 50% devotee at best. No, our gurus are simply wanting us to accept the grace of the Lord, because that's what they are trying to do. And their humility actually being one of their prominent qualities, which we might not see. We might see them as the greatest scholar, or the most powerful person, or the greatest leader, but actually one of their greatest qualities is humility, and they're acting simply on behalf of Krishna, means they're acting simply on behalf of their guru. Because what did their guru want? For all of us to be connected with Mahaprabhu and to accept the amazingly simple method that is current right now and will be for a while. So their gurus have entrusted them with the task of bringing as many of us back as we can. So our gurus don't even see us as their disciples so much as seeing us as manifestation of their Guru Maharaj, reminding them of this important service to Mahaprabhu. So that's why we don't need to think about, is everything I'm doing service, or is it partly karma, or it really is that simple, because that will please our guru. And that's also why they end up tying in all the time about our attitude toward fellow travelers, and that we want to always give honor. And we want to practice humility ourselves, and be very tolerant of tolerance being the number one practice for the resident of an ashram. Why? Because we're all being given this opportunity. We want it for ourselves, right? We want that much mercy for ourselves. When we start to think, how do we get that mercy for ourselves, then we can come a lot closer to thinking how we can also give it to others. It just makes more sense. If I can think exactly like my guru thinks as far as mercy goes and distributing mercy and the humility that he has and the tolerance he has and the surrender that he has to his guru, to the entire line of Sri Rupa, then I can start to understand about what other people should do. There's just a little bit of time left, and thank you, Mitravinda. I'm glad if you find this helpful, but I'm thinking that all of you have something very helpful to say too, because we are all in this boat of needing to understand what is separation. How can we always be the servitor? It takes us back to that's where we're trying to go ultimately, is to be a servitor. Today, I can pick up a broom and sweep an ashram floor. How is that the same?
And thank you for mentioning once again about this respect towards the those who are in this journey with us, because sometimes when you know, like when you travel in the same boat, it becomes harder and harder to appreciate people around you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yes, sometimes you just really need to take that same broom and beat your mind.
It's a good
Remind
strategy.
yourself. Yeah. And maybe can I ask you a small question about like the association? We all know that even like if you have several people, we still choose those like birds of the same feather, so to say. In a small group of people, you have someone who's closer to you, like-minded people. But I remember Madhusudana Maharaj always like advised like not to, how to say it normally. He advised like don't stop doing something just because others do not do. I mean, it's like I would call it like negative inspiration or something like this. And how not to get like, you know, this bad inspiration if you see that like someone's not properly doing or like this, because we all know about the positive side, but how not to, you know, not to fall into some trap.
Yeah, that is a very important point. We don't try to just, we're not like overly simplistic, and it is simple, but we don't try to be like a uneducated, like we have no teacher, will just say anything that sounds sort of correct. And there are many false applications of see good in everybody that really does not go deep. But our gurus go very, very deep with this. So there are various levels of respect that we give to the devotees, as explained in Upadeshamrita and everywhere in our guru's teachings. And it's true that if we have questions about somebody else's behavior, if in our heart we don't find an appeal for that, we don't really feel comfortable with observing that, we might not know, is it me, or is it truly something that I should avoid? Because it is a fact that somebody might approach my guru and spend some time and later be going away, and I can't necessarily see that like my guru can see. What is this person's sincerity? And the way I've thought of this, and which always helps me, is we've heard the expression, we don't throw the baby after the bath. You know that expression? So somebody may have faults, but if they're being showered, they're in the shower, then we're not going to dwell on the fact that they were dirty because they're in the shower. So that means we don't throw the baby after the bath. We don't say, oh, they were so dirty, and throw them away with the dirty bath water because now they're clean. But what I thought of one time when I was asking that exact question, which you have, is we've never been advised to take that dirty bath water for our own bath. So what if it is something as simple as intoxication? If we see that somebody appears to be a good devotee, except they have a bad habit of taking intoxication, and if I personally am not interested in taking intoxication, that's a good thing. It's not going to interfere with my progress so much. So I'm not going to feel like, but that person is doing it, so I guess I should too. That's not going to occur to me. So by our Guru's grace, we start to get a bit of common sense that we can trust more and more. We're constantly trying to weigh that against what we're hearing in the present and what we hear tomorrow and what we hear the next day. And if it's truly our quest in our heart, Krishna is going to send those kind of answers to us all the time. So the answer for us, what we should do, is going to become easier and easier. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it helps a lot to remember that we are all under the shower, not actually to criticize
Yeah.
others.
So we will always know that we should not be disrespectful, but we can be more of an observer from afar if we have a question, if we don't think that we yet know. We can bow down, we can acknowledge that someone is at some stage. Perhaps they've been initiated. Perhaps they've simply once chanted the holy name, and because we are constantly told of the spiritual potency of that, we will never disrespect them, no matter what. It doesn't mean that we will think that they are of the same feather that we ourselves desire to be.
But then one more small question occurred like today. I was talking actually to one person who has some, like, as we said, like some disadvantages, and it's interesting how the person himself or herself realizes his shortcomings, but at the same time, the person realizes that he like touched something very high, and say this person is a preacher, but still he has like shortcomings. And for me, it was always like difficult to harmonize, like, because if you preach, you should be like kind of acharya. You should also have like perfect behavior. And if not, then like, what's the value for your words? But still, we see like people are coming attracted by such preaching and such association. And even in one person, it seems like maybe, I don't know how to call it, like his karmic half is one thing, and like his spiritual life is another thing. And this karmic part might be very bad, and like preaching part or spiritual realization might be very high. I don't know if I'm right now, or like ideally, of course, we should be like pure in every sense. But what do you think? Like, is it possible that this like karmic physical, I don't know, like habits, they do not really affect the spiritual part? So, I mean, say like you can take intoxications, but still be a good preacher who attracts people and like sincerely, or it's not possible, and you like give the something diluted due to your like intoxications, or still a spiritual part doesn't mix with karmic. What do you think?
I have seen many examples of all sorts of extremes in this, and it's often not answered for might be a very long time. Like, was the person going in a good direction, gradually losing their anarthas, their bad habits, or were they going in what looked like it was a good direction, but ultimately succumbing to something which would be their downfall? And my conclusion is that I've seen all varieties, and it's time. I take it as when I have these questions, it's time for me to pay closer and closer attention to what my gurus actually go through. They've understood these things far better than I can ever imagine understanding them. And if anybody who has done anything ends up going away, they're sad beyond belief. And therefore, we're always seeing them trying to help a person like anything. I was just recalling with a friend yesterday about someone who stayed with Srila Gurudev at the Mat for a long time, and Gurudev loved him very much, but he had a bad habit and received many, many warnings he could not stay at the Mat if he continued this activity, and was never able to overcome the bad habit, and was asked to leave and had no anger about the fact, no resentment about the fact, and simply folded his hands, and as he was leaving begged if he could see Srila Gurudev one last time. And it was some wonderful devotee named Sripad Mahananda Prabhu who said, yes, I can take you. And he went to see Srila Gurudev one last time, and it was sweet, affectionate embraces, and with all respect to each other. The fellow departed and never returned to the Mat. But a person who is one of our strongest members today happened to meet him in the place that he went to next. And he glorified Srila Gurudev so much that she was inspired to come and meet Srila Gurudev, and that's how she got her connection. So some things are far beyond our capacity to understand the behind the scenes part. Don't try too hard. But we remember that we are students and we are observers sometimes. We won't have our own conclusions. We'll be observers until Krishna and Guru unveil the mystery. Okay, that's what was going on. The only other thing I can think of in that regard is I recall one person who was strict, immaculate in his practice, strong in his sadhana, became a great preacher, never had one flaw, very charismatic, organized many people for nice preaching, and could preach our philosophy and contribute much to the publication of our Guru's books. And somehow or other, completely lost his faith. And we don't really even know where he is now. Well, we are all when he was behaving faithfully. So the expression is it boggles the mind. Do you know that word boggles? It stumps. Our mind will not come up with the conclusion. So we remain the student, knowing that our teachers know, or at least they know precisely what to do. We're getting a little bit late here. I don't want to detain anybody.
Very grateful for your answers. Maybe they're not quite to the topic, but I think
I'm so grateful for the association of all of you. I myself am currently in a situation where I'm on the way to an ashram, but in a place where there's hardly any internet. So you're my association right now, and I'm so grateful for revealing something of your hearts. Jai Om Vishupad Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishupad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishupad Srila Bhakti Rakak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Sri Harinam Sankirtan in all of its forms, including Zoom. Ki Jai. All of the world devotees, Ki Jai. Bhakti Rakak Madhusudan Maharaj Ki Jai. His association, whenever he can return, we so much look forward to. Be well.
thank you, Didi. Thank you so much. A lot.
Hari Bol.